think if you're staying in the position, I'd be fine with like Dallas Goedert or something. Like I know, but like just because I think
Sacrilege. You're an Eagles
I
fan.
know,
What are you
but
doing?
like somehow the Eagles have run more two tight end sets than they have plays. Like they're just running like it's incredible. There's like they have two tight ends on defense. It's ridiculous. I think that's why what part of the problem is. I should probably email them. Um, or like I don't know MVS. Like one of these guys who we're not sure is real yet. Probably isn't. I could see
Yeah.
making that kind of move.
Yeah.
Just to get a hold of him.
MVS is going to come up as a potential give in a deal of mine for a second. I think that's a good one. I think you're probably going to have to you right now on your team you're choosing from among 4 or 5 receivers to fill 3 spots because you drafted
Yes.
well and you never know in any one given week what's going to happen and you're going to feel gross because in trading one of them away because you're picking someone who legitimately could go off and maybe MVS isn't quite a high enough level among wide receiver but
Right.
but a player fitting that description who Jamison Crowder if you were healthy or
Yes, exactly. That's
yeah
the tier.
right so
John Brown, like
sure.
that kind
Yeah,
of
he's
thing.
going to come up too on my list. So like, yes, it's going to be scary to deal him away because you might deal away one of the 5 that actually is real. That you're going to look back and go, oh, and I did it for Ingram, but this is arbitrage. I mean, no matter what I say about Ingram, and I've always been somewhat skeptical of him. He's an elite athlete, and there's a world out there where it's been 2 games. Like there's a world out there where he turns it around.
He's the actual tight end that looks like a receiver. He doesn't play like a receiver, but he actually looks like one.
A quick break to thank Lisa for sponsoring today. If you've started to realize your mattress is in tough shape and you've been putting off getting a new one, you hear me talk about Lisa all the time. I sleep on a Lisa mattress. I love mine. And of course, I recognize I'm just some doofus on a microphone. Because I like it doesn't mean you'll like it. But that's why Lisa gives you 100 nights to sleep on your new mattress. And if you don't love it after more than 3 months, you're not sleeping better, you can get your money back. They have a few different options for different feels, mattress feels. One that's kind of like memory foam, one that feels like a traditional box spring, one that's kind of in the middle of those two. They're a good company. They've sponsored for a long time. I very much appreciate that. And of course, that means a lot of people who listen to the show have gotten Lisa mattresses. I can get you 15% off right now when you go to leesa.com/Harris. Maybe you're not ready to go get one this very instant, but if and when you start thinking about a new mattress, when you get down to shopping for one, just remember this spot, file it away. Lisa, I do think you'll like it. 15% when you go to leesa.com/Harris. Okay, we're back with Jim, and we're counting down 5 trade acquisitions for right now in advance of games this weekend. I'll do my number 3, and I have DeAndre Swift, who is currently RB 109. Oh, I'm being told it's RB 34. It's been gross. He lost game 1 by himself. He has earned nothing like the Lions' trust. It's obvious at this point. Kerryon Johnson is the starter there and plays the most snaps, although it got fairly evenly distributed in that desultory come from ahead loss against the Packers where they built a 14-0 lead and instantly watched it go away. This Swift would be a play. It's a buy low where of all the rookie running backs, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's cooking and he's fine. And J.K. Dobbins is healthy, but mired in what to me maybe is like a 4 running back problem if you count Lamar Jackson.
Right.
I go, Swift is the hamstring doesn't seem to be the issue, and at some point I think the Lions go, all right, we need to see what this kid can do. He's a very highly thought of player. He's a great athlete. I think we're going to see a shift in workload as the season goes along. I wouldn't be trading for him to get him in to use him in week 3. Because it hasn't shaken out yet, and you are assuming risk. I mean, this a lot of the time, what we're asking you to do, if we're asking you to trade for Evan Engram, we're saying, please assume some risk. Here, have some risk on a plate with a sprig of parsley, chow that down, and good luck. And it's, I think it's how you win when you make a good bet, but it's scary to do. I think that the before the break, you mentioned receiver types that you trade for Engram. I think I feel the same about Swift. I'd be looking to find a John Brown, who I love. Everybody knows how much I love John Brown, but you drafted him wide receiver 6 on your team. You don't need John Brown probably, or a Tyler Boyd, or hell, I mean, if you can get someone to believe that Valdez Scantling is real, or Alan Lazard is real, I would do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good time to some of these unsettled backfields would be the time because, like you said, once they're settled, it's over.
And the kid is likeliest to be the place where they settle. How do you look at what the Lions are doing in the backfield and not based on really anything Swift himself has done, but just because it's Kerryon Johnson and Adrian Peterson, especially because it's Adrian Peterson? Like, how do you not think that when it settles, Swift gets a pretty big role?
Honestly, I sort of feel like Patricia is like playing like over the top on a loop in the back, like which for the younger kids is a Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling movie.
Yes.
And I feel like that's how he decides things. That's why Adrian Peterson keeps starting.
He keeps winning. He keeps winning the arm wrestling.
Yeah, he's winning all these arm wrestling. He's constantly lathering himself.
I was actually thinking in regards to that metaphor, because obviously you and I talk about that movie all the time. I was thinking maybe you guys could start resolving your underscore legal problems with the family, with the cell phone company, just by arm wrestling.
There's a lot of That's tough because there's a lot of what's the nice way to say this? Intravenous steroid use.
That was the nice way.
Yeah, I don't know the other way. Like it would be mean. So that's kind of the issue. Would be that like who's cycling, who's on, who's off. Grandma, what are you eating? Like that kind of thing. Like she's just eating like bone marrow and like chiclets. It's like it's scary.
I've actually heard that's how Gronk beefed back up again. It was all bone marrow and chiclets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
yeah, it is. All right, number 2 on your list of players to acquire.
Number 2, I have probably the most obvious one. And again, my last 2 might be more just like buys than buy lows, but Kenyon Drake. Okay. He just hasn't like popped yet. Like he's been fine, actually. There's no flags really yet. Like his workload looks fine. I guess the receiving's not as fun as it.
Yeah, it's 4 catches in 2 games. That's the red flag. The red flag is 4 in 2 games.
That's what it is. Yeah. The rushing involvement's fine. But all the red flags you could sell somebody on, like if you wanted to you know how you do this in a terrible way? You kind of pitch somebody and you say, here's the red flags of the player that I want. And you might be able to expose a couple pockmarks in the idea that like, maybe Kyler takes too much touchdown equity in the rushing sense. And then just say something about DeAndre Hopkins getting 300 targets and that there's just not enough for this guy. But in the end, I just think the workload balances out. It's not going to be as extreme as that like 5-game sample because taking 6-game samples from the year before is never that great. But I do think this is still their guy. So, and it's going to be a fun offense. So yeah, I would be fine getting in on this and paying a pretty good price. So meaning,
what's the price?
Like a good receiver or something like that. Like I pay like a Robert Woods plus something else, or and of course it's going to require that because somebody just drafted Drake in the early second probably. Yeah. But I'm just wondering if that team's 0-2 and they're struggling and he hasn't gone off yet, if you're able to capitalize on that. So it's obviously contextual, but I'd pay a reasonable price. What I'm saying, I don't think you have to completely lowball the situation because there's still some value here, which is why you can't tank the deal. Sure,
I don't think anybody who drafted Drake is feeling completely over him, but I agree that the way to sell it, I don't know if I agree. Okay, I'll just say I'm not sure I agree, but if the way you want to sell it is 4 targets. The way you want to sell it is
gotcha.
Last year was fake. Last year all those targets, it was fake. That's not what the offense is going to be now that they have DeAndre Hopkins. Like, sorry. Right. And so I actually kind of maybe agree with that, but if you don't agree with that, then I think that's the basis on which you sell it. So Robert Woods and what?
Robert Woods,
and some kind of lesser running back, some kind of
like a committee back of some sort. I mean, not maybe better than the Dobbins level, but that kind of appeal where there's like maybe a Kelly, like, and that seems like a pretty healthy offer actually in theory. But something that you're selling promise as opposed to this week. I know that I can come out with Drake, and so also like you said, for the people who did that like misfit toy collection of like 5 wide receiver 2s, if a couple have popped, don't be afraid to move one of them.
Right. Agreed. My number 2, I have Cooper Kupp. Total buy low at 9 catches for 121 yards. The 9 catches, right? That's the big issue. You watched that Eagle game on Sunday. It sure started like Cooper Kupp was going to have a big day. Like you saw Kupp right away in the first quarter, like boom, 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 like 3, I think maybe in the first drive, and then really disappeared. I mean, partly because they didn't need to throw, I guess. They built up the lead. I don't know if you've heard the Eagles are bad, so, teams don't used to use their wide receiver. Hey, you hit the Celtics hard. I gotta hit back somehow.
No, I mean, the tight ends couldn't cover Cooper Kupp. So
if you can't get Zach Ertz to cover Cooper Kupp, you're lost. He's wide receiver 44 right now. He was a 3rd-round pick. I think you're going to find some people who are willing to just say, once again, you're not going to get – the reason he's 2 is because you're going to have to pay more to get him, no question about it. I was thinking maybe after last night, how about James Robinson? Would that get that done?
It could, yeah. Yeah, no, this would be like this is kind of a crucial point, I think, in his fantasy arc. Like, this week would be the time to move him.
James, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's fine. I just don't think he's ever going to see that many targets ever again. So
it's funny, I said that earlier in the show, and then I went, oh, wait, Leonard Fournette played for that team last year. Like, that team is just dumb and wants to throw it to slow running backs. So I guess I think in theory you're right, but how about maybe he started less hot and he was hurt last week, but like some combination of with David Montgomery in a Cooper Kupp deal, you'd probably need to add something to that.
Yeah, but I don't think so much more. I mean, I think the thing that you can sell is there's an extended because of injury, but there also is a thing where over the last 10 games that like Robert Woods has like twice as many targets, right. Is there a shift in what's going on? But also, like I said, that's also noisy because we have
2 games.
2 games, and things have happened to Kupp during that time that like aren't representative of his full use, if that makes sense. Like he's been active and not fully himself. So in any case, I think that's that's fair. I think the idea of you just don't want to get too into pairing 2 nothings. That can be really attractive, and then you're never going to get the buy low done. Like, you do have to give something,
especially for someone like Kupp. I mean, for someone who's really struggled, like Evan Engram, for someone who's, who hasn't, frankly, DeAndre Swift, who hasn't shown anything. Although probably Swift has more theoretical upside than Engram does at a scarce position.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that, like most everybody else we're talking about on the list, you're going to have to. You're right. You're going to have to pay something. Like, you can offer 2 nothings. There's no harm. That's another question that I always get. Hey, what should I offer for Cooper Kupp? What should I offer? And I'm like, well, start with your bath mat, and then move up to your move up to the Afghan on your sofa, and then you can start talking about play. It doesn't hurt. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to offer nothing, and then see if you can get away with it. But whatever. All right, your number 1 buy low, or just number 1 buy. It's not a low. Mine isn't low.
Yeah, the only thing you have to worry about is if you go too low on your first offer. It's just that, it's like how texts have tone and stuff. Like fantasy offers have tone.
Right,
so if you even if
you're
say
stupid.
Nothing,
it's
2 names. You're like, you really think I want your I want your bathwater? And so it's like that's not fun. My number 1, again, a guy who's been productive, but I feel like the market isn't appreciating, and also it's a narrative about his quarterback being like cooked, would be Adam Thielen. Again, he's been good, but I just think that he legitimately is a top 5 fantasy receiver going forward. If you're going to do ROS ranks, I think all we're learning about Minnesota is it's a one-man offense in terms of the passing game. Sure, there's risk. I just feel like you can get away with acquiring him, is my theory, for not paying a top 5 wide receiver price. So I would give real helpful players if I had, if I had to.
Well, you do. You have to. So who are you giving up?
Yeah, you have to.
I agree. I agree with your assessment. I do agree.
I mean, I would give someone like David Johnson plus something. I would give somebody who really gets work. I would give 2 guys who are actively involved. Like maybe it was a David Johnson and a John Brown, and you could sell them on the idea that you're getting 2 weekly starters. So it would have to be essentially 2 weekly starters.
I think there's. I mean, I'm always hesitant to say that that's a good offer, and I'm positive because not in my league. But I think it's possible that David Johnson and John Brown could get it done for Adam Thielen. John Brown's been what is he? Has he been as? I mean, the problem John Brown came out of last week with a little bit of a nick, but he's got more fantasy points than Adam. Adam Thielen is wide receiver 6 and John Brown's wide receiver 9. They're separated by one point. So.
Kind of my theory, or a Tyler Lockett, that kind of thing. I know Lockett's been fine. It's just that I would swap out. I'd swap
Yeah.
out his big plays for like Thielen's volume. It'd be something I'm willing to do. And Thielen's not like an exciting name, so I could just see you converting that. But I think he could be really